Hello, this is Tony Hiller from RealClimateScience.com. Voltaire said, "Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities." In Europe, deranged children are trying to destroy art in order to save the climate. Climate activists fail to glue themselves to the scream painting in Norway. "I scream for people dying." Another person screamed, "I scream when lawmakers ignore science." The vandals are from the Norwegian group Stop Oil Exploration, and they wanted to pressure lawmakers into stopping oil exploration. We've seen their distorted belief system. Now let's take a look at reality. Death rates from all types of natural disasters around the world, including meteorological and climate events, are down 95% over the last century. Over the past century, life expectancy has doubled and is now at a record high. Crop yields around the world have tripled over the last 60 years. Malnutrition has declined to record lows over the past 30 years around the world. Extreme poverty has massively declined around the world over the past century. Illiteracy has also massively declined over the past century. The human condition has greatly improved, but these climate activists imagine that everything is falling apart. In 1920, Scientific American published this article, "Fertilizing the Air with Carbon Dioxide to Promote Plant Growth." And they showed how crop yields could be greatly enhanced by pumping carbon dioxide from industrial facilities into the air over farms. In 1921, Dr. Riedel of Germany described the inability to grow enough food as being the world's greatest problem. And he said the solution to this problem was fertilizing the air with carbon dioxide. NASA says that carbon dioxide fertilization has been greening Earth over the past few decades. This greening is occurring because of the burning of fossil fuels, which Joe Biden has promised to get rid of.
But kiddo, I want you to just take a look, okay? You don't have to agree, but I want you to look in my eyes. I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel, and I am not going to cooperate. Okay? We don't have a lot of time. We don't have much more than 10 years, for real. We're going to be shutting these plants down all across America and having wind and solar.
Let's take a look at what would actually happen if Joe Biden was successful at shutting down fossil fuels. There would be no diesel fuel for the trucks which bring the groceries to our stores. The store shelves would quickly become empty, and shortly after that, millions and millions of people would be starving. Fuels would become unavailable and unaffordable, shutting down civilization. This would quickly lead to mass chaos and societal collapse. A small example of this occurred on Valentine's Day last year. February 14th, 2021 was the coldest on record in the United States and was more than 20 degrees below average. The cold air plummeted all the way down into South Texas. Here in Cheyenne, Wyoming, it only got up to -7 degrees Fahrenheit and was the coldest afternoon on record that late in winter. There was no wind blowing, and the huge wind farm just to the west of Cheyenne had to be shut down because of icing on the blades. Not that it made any difference because the wind wasn't blowing anyway. In Texas, the wind wasn't blowing either. The wind turbines froze up, as did some gas pipelines. Lots of people in Texas froze to death because the state focused on wind power and didn't take care of their fossil fuel infrastructure. 2 days earlier, USA Today was bragging that wind power produced up to 2/3 of Texas energy output in 2020. But when Texas needed the energy the most, the wind stopped blowing. These wind power graphs from the United Kingdom show what's wrong with relying on wind energy. There's long periods of time when there's not a lot of wind, and when that occurs, there's not going to be much wind-powered electricity either. Until some new large-scale energy storage technology becomes available, it's going to be impossible for a country to rely on wind power. Conservation of energy is the fundamental law of thermodynamics, and it's a law which climate alarmists just don't seem to understand. You can't rely on inherently unreliable sources of energy like wind and solar. Let's think about what would happen if Joe Biden were successful at shutting down fossil fuels as he promised. we would immediately see a huge increase in poverty and pollution. People would start burning everything they can in order to stay warm. Prior to the days of the widespread use of petroleum, cities ran off of whale oil, and many whale species became nearly extinct. The story of Moby Dick is based on the ill-fated voyage of the Essex in 1820. The ship was attacked by a sperm whale which they were hunting, and the whale won. Almost all of the crew died, and the ones who survived ended up resorting to cannibalism to survive. The history of the human race shows that people frequently resort to cannibalism when their survival is at stake. Personally, I think it's easier to deal with a 1 part per 10,000 increase in atmospheric carbon dioxide rather than the collapse of civilization. While we're on the topic of Essex, their £655 million solar energy company just collapsed into bankruptcy. This mirrors Barack Obama and Joe Biden's green energy failures from their first 8 years in the White House. Obama and Biden confiscated huge amounts of taxpayer money and gave it away to failed green energy companies like Solyndra. Mitt Romney famously commented on this in the 2012 presidential debates.
I mean, I had a friend who said, you don't just pick the winners and losers, you pick the losers.
It appears that 14 years later, some people have learned nothing. Nothing these art vandals are doing has anything to do with science, climate, or reality. Somebody is paying and training these young people to assist in the destruction of Western civilization. It's just as Voltaire described. They were taught to believe absurdities, and they're committing atrocities. Toto has been pulling back the curtain on this madness for the past 14 years. You can visit him, Kyrie Caesar, Toki and Upla on the web at realclimatescience.com.